Well, Katey, thank you so much for being here on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. Before we dive in, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Katey Collins, and I actually own two businesses. I have a practice where I provide mental health services, and then I'm also a life coach for women as well. So those are my two businesses. And personally, I love being active, and I'm an endurance athlete. So I love triathlons and swimming and running. And I have a family as well. I have a husband and my two kids and a dog. So they keep me really busy.
Well, that's great news, then, particularly if you need to stay active constantly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Now,
Yeah.
one thing that I always love talking about as female entrepreneurs is every one of us has always got our own story to tell, and every one of us has got our own unique journeys that we're going on. So what was that like for you? How did you get started in becoming a female entrepreneur, and how does that journey lead to you to where you are now?
Absolutely. Yeah. It has been a long journey. So I'm 44 and I started both of these businesses in 2018. So they're very young. So it's only been about a year and a half. So it really has been a long journey to get me to this point. From the schooling standpoint, I needed to get my bachelor's degree and then my master's degree, and work so many hours after graduating and, take my boards exam and my licensure exam. So it was a really detailed process, to getting there, but of course worth every step of the way. And actually, before I went to get my master's degree, I was working in social work, and I got burned out, and I was really exhausted, and I was just tapped out, and I felt like I was not doing my best work anymore, and I felt like I wasn't really serving people the way I intended to serve them. And so I made a drastic change, and I decided that I wanted to make a total change of course and go into the flower shop business.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I think that was my almost like a midlife crisis in a career, if you will, and so I ended up buying a flower shop, and I had that business for about five years. And let's just say it was not the best idea, was not the most well thought out and planned business. So that was a really good learning experience for me, though. Now, as a business owner, again, I have a lot more information to fall back on. I have some experiences that I can pull from, and I feel like I'm prepared so much more now than I was then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it interesting because even though you went and you got a florist business, at that moment in time, it just felt like the right thing to do. And
Right. Yeah,
even now, reflecting back on it, you feel like, yeah, that wasn't the forever thing that I had planned, but you took that step anyway, and you learned so much from it, which again, lead you to where you are now. And that's one of the things that I'm so passionate about when I talk to other female entrepreneurs is whatever business you're going in right now, that doesn't mean that it might be your forever business. You can pivot, you can change so many more times in your life moving forward, because you as an individual change, life changes around you, and that gives you the opportunity that gives you the opportunity to go into other opportunities. And I think that's what happened with you as well, from understanding, the story.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, your passion obviously is, apart from just being a life coach, but also in the fitness industry. And I love your website because it's all about fitness and being healthy.
Thank you.
So talk to us a little bit, because the topic you want to talk to us about today is why fitness, or just staying fit and healthy, is so important for your business as well. So I'm going to hand over to you. Why don't you just talk that through and just explain to the audience, the benefits, all those kind of things as to why it is so important, because I know it is, but it's good to have an expert here to talk to us through.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yeah. So I have 6 key areas that I wanted to talk about all of you today. So the first one is just really recognizing Why is being active, exercise, fitness so critical to your business success? And the first thing that always comes to my mind is confidence. I think especially for women, so many times they really struggle with confidence, and this includes me, definitely. And I've noticed that when people are able to accomplish a goal, say a fitness goal, maybe they're going to do their first 2-mile walk or their first 5K run. When they go through that process and they finish that sense of completion and that feeling of, oh my goodness, I did this, like I really accomplished that really translates over into your business. There's so many times as entrepreneurs that we're faced with monumental tasks, like things that we are terrified of and feel like, how are we ever going to do this? And so if you pull from that confidence that you gained in your life, maybe through fitness, it really can transfer over. So that's kind of the number one thing that stands out initially. And then, that whole process of scheduling and being consistent with your training also translates and complements business well, of course, because as an entrepreneur, you're always going to be setting yourself up for, okay, if this is the outcome I want to achieve in 6 months or a year or 2 years, I'm going to work backward. And these are the steps I'm going to put in place to get there. It's the exact same thing when you're training for a marathon or a triathlon. You're putting in place that plan and you're going through and following that.
Yeah. Now, I like how you're using that as an example, because for so many people, in particular, when we're talking about goals and planning, working backwards, they can't always grasp that kind of concept. But I like the fact that you're using the training as an example and either so as an analogy, because it makes so much more sense. And I'm sure there's so many fitness trainers and people here listening to this now. And I'm sure you're going to benefit a lot from this podcast episode, because a lot of what Katey is saying is walking very much hand in hand. So if you can associate yourself with these kind of things, definitely listen to Katey and take some detailed notes.
So social support, again, can be so beneficial. It allows you that opportunity. If you find some people that you'd like to train with or like to go to the gym with, you can really problem solve with each other and network. So often when I'm on, say, my trail run with a group that I meet up with, I'm interacting with people of all different professions. And it's just so great to have that option of networking. And then also, you're able to manage your stress through exercise considerably, which of course applies to your business. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about stress in just a little bit. So yeah, like you had said, the warning signs and symptoms, and this I like to kind of encourage you to think of it like your whole life, not just necessarily with exercise or your business, but if something is out of alignment in your life, you're going to be feeling maybe really tired, exhausted. Maybe your memory is poor, your concentration is poor. Some people will tell me that they feel really angry and frustrated and irritable often. Some people really are having a hard time finding motivation to do things that they once enjoyed. Medical complications can be creeping in. For some, this is thyroid issues, high blood pressure, maybe diabetes, back pain. It can be a whole range of things. And another symptom or a warning sign is if you're feeling like you're not appreciated, you're feeling like people are maybe taking advantage of you, or you're lonely. So those are some of just the quick red flags that I wanted to point out. But the most important one is stress. Yeah. Really, there's an excellent article from Harvard Women's Health Watch. And Dr. Jill Goldstein talks about the impacts of stress and how it can interfere with our cognition, our attention, our memory, and it really affects other brain functions like our mood and anxiety. And that stress also can promote inflammation, which, as all of us know, really adversely affects our health. And then, it's been also associated to contribute to chronic diseases like with our brain and with our heart. So the reason that I point this out with stress is because all of us know as entrepreneurs, we face a lot of stress. We're not sure when the next check is coming in. We have all these bills to pay. We, have this new branding we're doing, whatever it is, we are always inundated with that stress. And so exercise is really one of the great ways that we can manage that. And that's one of the benefits of exercise.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can, on a personal level, relate so much to that, because when I get stressed, the first thing I do is I feel immediately like I can't think straight.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is I just take my dog for a walk, and I just go for a nice long walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that exercise getting the blood pumping again, and even sometimes on that walk, you go like, oh, I've got a solution out to my problem.
Right.
And
absolutely.
yeah. And it's just because you get the blood pumping, you got getting some oxygen in, but also you're taking yourself out of that environment that has created that kind of stress, that emotion that you don't need. So I can completely relate to what you mentioned there. And it makes so much sense as well.
Yeah. It's interesting when you were talking about walking your dog. I was just thinking about a conversation I just had with a trauma therapist who was talking about how running and exercise, how that movement can be an effective form of trauma treatment, actually.
Oh, wow.
Obviously you want, there's specialized ways you do that in therapy as well, but that definitely, like you're talking about, you're able to kind of process through and think through maybe some things that you're feeling worried or concerned about when you're doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's amazing. And I love hearing you say it as well, because it just proves to myself that what I'm doing is right. And I should keep on doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, some more benefits, like we talked about, confidence, that social connection. This is my favorite. I have such a great community that I've been able to connect with through, whether it's US Masters Swimming or the open water swim groups. I'll go when I'm traveling anywhere in the world, really, and I can usually always find a group of open water swimmers, and they will welcome me with open arms. I've never met them before. I can just hop in and join them for a swim. And runners are like that too. You can meet up with people wherever you are and find a group to run with. And that social connection is so important to us, and we really need that.
No, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Right. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of daily habits, because I think that is also the one thing you and I are talking about: swimming and about running and walking. And there are some here listening to this and going, oh my gosh, I just don't have time for that. How on earth I'm going to get time to go for a walk or to go for a run on a daily basis? So talk to us a little bit from your perspective on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the daily habits, it really sets you up for success. When you are able to implement that on a regular basis, you just have so many more opportunities to kind of meet your goals and to be feeling better. And for some people, daily habits could be morning yoga. Others, it might be taking their dog for a walk. Some people, it might be tennis or golf, and like whatever that is for you. Reading, journaling. The daily habits don't necessarily have to be exercise. I always recommend that that's part of it if possible. But yeah, that really helps us kind of get our structure for the day and kind of get us into the right mindset, and can just bring that sense of peace and calm. Yeah, that's really important. Even if, you think about your life, if you're going to live, say, 90 years or 100 years, and even if you're only on schedule, say 75% of your life with that daily routine, imagine the impact it's going to have in such a positive way. Whereas people who struggle, I think, with routine and structure, they might think, oh, maybe they set this goal like, I'm going to work out every day this week, but they haven't worked out in 5 years, so that's maybe an unrealistic or unattainable goal. So I talk a lot with my clients about, let's set realistic goals that you are going to accomplish. You're going to feel good about them, and we can build on them and grow those goals. So yeah, like I was saying, if you go back to your lifespan, if you don't have those daily practices in place, your chance of living a healthy and a fulfilled life is actually much lower, because you don't have those processes to get your 2-year goals. Just like if you have a financial goal for your business, you wouldn't neglect to put all the steps to get into to meet that financial goal, right?
Yeah.
Because less likely to happen. Like, obviously you have to put the work in and you have to do what's needed to meet that financial goal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense as well. And I think from a daily habit perspective as well, one of the things that I talk about is the first thing you do when you get out of bed, that kind of habit that you're creating first thing in the morning, that is really the pinnacle point of your day. Because what I find is so many people, the first thing they do when they get up in the morning is they grab their phone or they check their emails, they check social media, and they get completely drawn down this wormhole instead of start focusing on themselves, getting themselves set up for success for that particular day. And
Yes.
one of the things I do in particular every morning is as soon as I get up, make myself a cup of coffee and I go and meditate. And people laugh when I say it, but it is true because I'm setting myself up for success. I'm setting my day up and I'm seeing myself as to how my day is going to, how am I going to live out my day? And I do this every single day without a doubt. And you know what? I love it. It is part of my routine. It's a part of my habit because I started very slow, but I kept on pushing myself every day in doing it. And it's a habit now. I cannot go every morning and not meditate. I have to do it. Otherwise I just feel completely lost.
That's perfect. And I love to hear you say that. There's so much research and centuries of evidence to prove how effective meditation is. I love to hear you say that. Yeah. And in the mornings when I wake up, I as well do not grab my phone right away. I will admit I used to be guilty of that. Because I would sleep with my phone by me. My mom lives alone. And so, I'm always fearful, if she needs something in the night or if she has a problem, I like to make sure my phone is accessible in case of an emergency, but then I found when I was doing that, then it was easy, to pick it up right away in the morning. And then, a lot of people talk about this, and Brendan Burchard talks about this as well, how if you do that, it just sends you into that rabbit hole of anxiousness and anxiety, and you're like looking at everybody else's agenda before you decide on what you want your own to be. So too, for me, my morning practice looks like I wake up, I do a very slow stretch in my bed. I really think about what it is I want for the day, how I want to be spending my time with my family, my friends, what my work schedule is going to be looking like, what my exercise is going to be. I take my my vitamins, I do my breakfast, and then I do my workout. So unless it's a recovery or rest day and I don't have a workout that day, but yeah, I don't start my actual work in my office until after all that's done usually.
Yeah. No, I think it's really good. And for those of you listening, if you are thinking about what kind of daily habit you can create yourself in order to start the day and be successful, you don't have to immediately start. If you're running your own business, one of those things you've got to understand is your time is your own. You can be flexible with yourself, but start your morning with setting yourself up for success, not just, going into the automating or start automating yourself and just going down the emails and just, getting immediately distracted and sucked into work. Your health starting every single day is so much more important than checking emails and replying to emails, etc. So definitely start thinking about that as a daily habit for yourself so your business can be successful as well.
Yeah, so preparing your mindset as you're designing some goals that you have or imagining what you want the future to look like in terms of your health, your wellness, your fitness, as well as your business, it really takes some nurturing and some work. It's not something that will just happen automatically. So as Henriette, you were talking about meditation, that of course was number one on my list. So perfect. And then guided visualization. I love this one. Do you do visualization at all yourself?
Oh, yes. Yeah? Through meditation, okay. I did. It's like part of my whole little routine every morning.
Oh, perfect. And then what is it that you tie in with your visualization? Is it something with work or your family or your fitness?
Definitely work related. So every morning meditation, it starts with my health, work, and then where I see myself in the future with my business. And then obviously incorporating family and things that matter within that. But I think my success and what I'm working towards is one of the main focuses I always create the visualization about.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah. And an example of one way I used this when I first started practicing it was back in 2017. I had decided that was my first year I would complete a full Ironman triathlon. So for your listeners that may not be familiar, so that triathlon, it's a 2.4-mile swim, and then it's a 112-mile bike followed by a marathon, a 26.2-mile run. So it's a all-day event, right?
Yeah.
And so I had really thought about doing that about 15 years prior to that was when I thought, I want to do that one day. And then it just wasn't in the cards. I didn't make it a priority. It didn't happen for a long time. And then I finally decided when my kids were a little bit older, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to give it a try. But I knew I'd have to use some mindset work to get myself to that finish line. And so that's when I started practicing the visualization. And I literally would imagine, say the swim portion of it. And I would only allow myself to visualize the best possible outcome. Because when you over and over again are imagining that great outcome, the outcome you're striving for, it's so much more likely to happen than A, if you're not imagining it in the first place, or B, if you're imagining a terrible outcome. So I did that probably 6 months prior to the race. I would say almost every night I would visualize, a small portion of the race. And I only did it in a way that, like I said, it was the best possible outcome. And I actually did have a good race. I mean, it wasn't fast, but I was able to complete it. And that was my goal. And I was really, really excited about that. And so visualization, you can incorporate that with your business. You can incorporate that in relationships, a lot of different ways. So that's a good one for mindset. Also, writing down and tracking your goals. There's some actual benefit of that old-fashioned writing. It's a process that our brain uses that really benefits us. So if you can write it down so you can physically see it, and then also hold yourself accountable by tracking those goals, that's another way to support your mindset. And then lastly, be kind and loving to yourself in your thoughts. This is probably where I spend most of my time with my clients, because unfortunately over the years, people tend to adapt these thoughts that really were from somebody else. They were maybe stereotypes that were passed down to them. Maybe, they were all of these things that really weren't from themselves, and they're not loving and nurturing, So somebody might be really hard on themselves and always criticizing themselves and putting themselves down, and maybe thinking, oh, I don't deserve that, or I'm not good enough for that, or, and that really affects us in some profound ways. And it will definitely take a hit on your business if that's the way your mindset is. So if you can change that over to much more positive and loving, a quick example, I always tell people, when you listen to what you're saying to yourself, or write down what you're saying to yourself, if it's not something you would tell somebody you love, then why would you tell yourself that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you're saying that, because one of the things that I talk about a lot is the fact that you've got to listen to how you talk about yourself, and you've got to listen to what you think about yourself as well. And sometimes we have these kind of stories that we're telling ourselves, but we don't even know that we're doing that. And you keep on repeating the story and over again. Simple example. When I started my business, and I know that I'm not the only one, there's so many other female entrepreneurs out there who completely can relate to this. But the first thing is when you go from a corporate world to starting your own business, the first thing you really struggle with is the money mindset. Selling, that fear of selling, and you go, oh my gosh, I'm not a salesperson, I can't sell. Why can't I make a sale? I'm not going to make a sale. Why should I make a sale? I'm not worthy of getting this money in order to build my business. And I'm saying this, and it sounds quite harsh, but it is the actual truth, because at the end of the day, those are things you're telling yourself, sometimes even subconsciously, you didn't know about it. So the biggest thing that I did last year in particular was a huge shift for me and my business, because I completely and solely concentrated on my mindset as to how I'm going to shift that in order to change the way I'm thinking, but also talking about myself and to myself on a constant basis. And oh my gosh, since I've done that, opportunities just started opening up everywhere. So I completely agree with what you're saying. I love it. I love it.
That's
I can
awesome.
talk about mindset. I can talk about mindset all day long.
Yes. Isn't it great? It's the best thing. Yeah. I'm really happy to hear that. It takes a big commitment, and it really takes a lot of vulnerability to put yourself in that place where you can explore, where is this coming from? You know, sometimes you're going back a long ways before you can figure out where the seed was that sprouted for that thought.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Congratulations.
Thank
That's awesome.
you.
A lot of times, and this actually ties in nicely to what you were just talking about with the finances and with the money mindset. Sometimes for women, we have this kind of faulty measure of success for ourselves. It's very easy for us to adapt what other people are doing, maybe what a spouse is earning, maybe what a brother or a sibling or a sister is earning, you know, in a totally different profession. So a lot of times we set ourselves up for very unrealistic expectations. And when you're able to kind of scale that down to what really applies to you individually, it's a freeing thing. It's a beautiful thing, because you're kind of letting go of a lot of heavy burdens and expectations, you know. And when you can come to your business from a place of pure passion and love and enjoying what you're doing, I feel like the income will naturally start to grow, right? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that I'm super wealthy in my business. Like, it's a growing process. There's no doubt about it, you know. But I do notice that I love what I do. And when I finish up with a client and I'm so excited about that, obviously, you know, that leads to them telling other people about, oh my gosh, you know what, this worked really well for me. And Katey helped me with that. Or, you know, so it's kind of a natural process when you allow that for yourself, instead of saying, I have to make this amount of money, or I have to do this, you know, this is what I need to do to be successful, because that's not always the case. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, I like that you're saying that, because a lot of people, when they measure success, they use always money as an aspect of that. And I did the same. I mean, when I started my business, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have this kind of money in order to be successful. But what I quickly realized going through that mindset stages is that actually the success isn't to do with the money. Yes, that is just a tool that is coming in afterwards, but the success really starts with the passion you have for what you're doing and seeing the difference you're making with other people, for other people in their lives. And that's where I'm holding on to success. So if I've had a great call with somebody, to me, that was a success. And since I changed that kind of concept as well, I've just seen the money then coming in, but also changing that kind of concept of not putting a figure to it, you know, and saying that I measure success based on the amount of money I'm making, if that makes sense. Right.
And I would imagine that was exceptionally challenging for you, because I think for podcasters, they have this very unique business, and that you're not able to see your audience. You don't hear your audience. So many times I'm guilty of this. I'll listen to tons of podcasts and I never reach out to them. I should be saying, thank you. This was so valuable. And, you know, so maybe we could all learn from that and give you guys a little bit more feedback. But for you to be able to remind yourself of that and know and have the faith in that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. And I think too, with success, I think you really need to get lean in weeding out what is not critical to you. So for so many women, we tend to, and not all of us, but I think many that I've met tend to say yes to people. We want to please people. We want to make other people happy. We want to be helpful. We want to be supportive. So we take on all of these things in our life and we pile more and more and more onto our plate, mostly while we are then depriving ourselves of what we really need. You know, and I always use the analogy of getting on an well, now people aren't getting on airplanes, but hopefully soon we will be again. But when you get on the airplane and the flight attendant is giving the example of the oxygen mask, and she or he says, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. Obviously, we know that because you're not going to be helpful to anyone else if you're passed out. But we forget that sometimes. We think we can do everything and we can be it all to everyone, and then suddenly that's when I get a lot of people. They're like broken down and they need to be, they need to rebuild again. But one way you can do that is eliminating, like, do you really have to volunteer on that committee? Like, could somebody else maybe volunteer? Or do you have to pack your kids' lunches when they're 15? Maybe they can start packing their own lunches. What are some things that you could take off of your plate to allow yourself to meet your success and your own goals?
Yes.
And some other things to kind of help when you're measuring your success, is, well, we talked about the thought processes. So I encourage you to continue working on the thought process part of it. And then also the comparison. I want to go back to that. So with fitness especially, a lot of people will tell me that say they're afraid to go to the gym because they don't want people to look at them. They feel like maybe somebody will laugh at them. They're afraid that they don't know how to use the equipment. And so they will not even go because they have this mindset of fear, right? And so when you're able to challenge yourself to kind of take that step, right, and do some things that maybe you're uncomfortable with, but it will benefit you, if you're able to do some of those things like going to the gym. And, keep in mind, exercise is different for everyone. So I'm not only talking about the elite athletes or the professional athletes, I'm talking about people that maybe would get their heart rate up by walking down to the end of the block. Maybe they get their heart rate up by, going up 5 stairs. It's different for everybody. Some people, it might be a marathon. It really depends on who you are. So I like to remind people to think about where you're at and measure your success for what it is that you need to do and how can you slowly grow. I know wheelchair athletes that are highly competitive and very active. So there's always some accommodation, and like I think about yoga. When I do yoga, let me tell you, I'm not very flexible. And sometimes I watch the yoga instructor on my little YouTube video and I think, there's no way I'm getting my knee or my leg in that position. But I'm so glad she gives me all of these different accommodations. She's like, if you can't go here, try this or try this. If this doesn't work, try this. So fitness and exercise is like that. We have a lot of options we can choose from.
And I like the fact that there are options. At the end of the day, you don't have to go to the extreme or you don't have to go to the other end where you don't do anything. There are always options in between that can accommodate you. Not just in fitness. Oh my gosh, you can use that for business as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Right. And I think too, being willing to reach out, say, if you're new in business, who can you find as a mentor? Who can you find to rely on or confide in, or maybe ask some questions of? Because I think in business, so many times we feel like we should know it. We should understand it. We should just be able to do it right away. And again, that goes back to those unhealthy expectations we might set on ourselves. So when you're, adapting, what is it that you're going to do? How can you scale up? How can you reach out for support and use some other people who can be there for you and help you get there?
Basically, there's no excuse. Everybody can go and get fit. Everybody can go and take the time, even if it's just walking around the house, walking in the garden. Oh my gosh, actually, I've got another example. Recently in the UK, there was this story that just went viral. It's an elderly man. He just turned 100 years of age. And it's during the lockdown. So if you're listening to this episode, this is during the lockdown. And he decided he's just going to raise £1,000 by walking 100 times back and forth in his garden. So he decided to do it. But the whole thing went so viral, he raised over £1 million.
Oh my goodness.
By doing this. And I just thought that is so inspiring, and a 100-year-old man, and he decided he's going to walk 100 times back and forth in his garden, and he's going to raise money doing it. And the support he got was just incredible. So that just
Absolutely.
tells me there are no excuses.
Right, definitely. I would agree with. But I guess the bottom line again is for you to make sure your health and wellness is a priority,
Yeah.
because ultimately anything else in life is going to suffer if it's not where it needs to be, be it your relationships or your business. Yeah, you just need to make sure that you love yourself and make yourself a priority, and hopefully incorporating fitness is one of the ways that you'll do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just shows how important it is, because from everything that you've said, at the end of the day, you only have one life,
Mhm.
and you've got to look after yourself. You've got to look after your own health. You've got to look after your own mental health as well. Because if you're running a business, you're going to need that. You're going to need the stamina. You're going to need to be fit in order to
Mhm.
run a successful business. So for every one of you listening, oh my gosh, like we said in the beginning, just start every day thinking about yourself, about your health, about your fitness, and just work it through, get into those daily habits. Katey, thank you so much for being here with us today. I
Thank you.
really enjoyed
Yeah.
this podcast episode. Before we go, I know that you've got a lovely free quiz that you're giving to the audience. Why don't
Yes.
you tell them about the quiz?
Sure. Yeah. So I call it the stopwatch, and it's a little snapshot that looks at different areas of your life. And it's kind of a great tool to step back and look and see if something is maybe out of balance, if there might be some red flags somewhere. So that is something I'm happy to share with your audience for free. You can go to my website. I think, will you have the link there on the show notes? Okay. And then you can just type, there's a chat box right there. You can just type stopwatch in the chat box, and I'll be sure to email that free quiz to you.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Sure. And then too, Henriette, if you have any people that would like to incorporate swimming, or maybe are afraid of the water, perhaps they just want to kind of check out the beach or the pool, they're not super familiar, I do have a swim tips document as well. I can send them for free if you'd like.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm definitely going to look in that. I mean, I love swimming myself, but I'm always
Oh,
intrigued
nice.
to see,
Okay.
what is available. So thank you so much. So for those of you listening, by all means, the link is in my show notes. Go to Katey's website, go to the little chat box and type in their stopwatch, or is it swimming that they need to type in there?
Swim tips. Yeah.
Swimming tips. Okay.
Yeah.
So swimming
Okay.
tips, if you want the tips on swimming there as well. But yes, by all means, go into take the link to the show notes. Let me say that again. Go to the show notes, take the link there, and obviously go into Katey's website so you can get that free quiz available. Katey, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time
Thank
being
you.
here with us and
Yeah,
sharing all
thank
of
you.
these amazing tips. It's been fantastic. But yeah, I wish you all of the best, and I'm sure we'll be in touch fairly soon again.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.